Okay, so yeah, so going back to, you know, this whole kind of business and marketing and branding, and as you're saying, getting people through the door. Now, one thing that is really interesting, and I know where you're coming from, but I think it'll be great to clarify that those who haven't necessarily listened to you guys, is where are we at when we have our business branding, which most people would like to hide behind, and our personal branding. Tell us where you sit with that, because also I think this can also raise some confusions about what we do and how we share that story. So where do you sit between this business branding and personal branding?
Yeah, I think depending what sort of business you've got, depends how much it matters what the business branding even is. Because I think people that are new to business, or even been in business for a while but are starting a new venture, can get hung up on what are my colours, what's my logo, and all of this, and you can spend a lot of money on, you know, the brand of the business and everything, but ultimately, as harsh as it sounds, none of us are Coca-Cola, none of us are Adidas. So even as much as we work hard on those business brands and want it to be a household name, it probably isn't going to. I mean, for some it will, you know, maybe I've had this conversation with the guy that owns like Airbnb. When he started that, I'd be like, oh, no one's going to know that, you know, you're the name of your business so well over so long. But obviously I would have been proved wrong, because obviously Airbnb is a well-known brand now. But the majority of us with our businesses, that's not going to happen to our brand. That's going to be so recognizable. So in terms of using social media, we need to use ourselves, because we tend to trust other individuals or buy into individuals more than just a logo, a badge, a bunch of like mission statements and whatnot. So yeah, I would lead. How we teach anyway, what we teach about is all about you being the face of it. So if you don't want to be the face of your business, then we're definitely not the people for you, in which case maybe you're going to have to hide behind brand. You're going to have to work harder. You're probably going to have to do digital marketing, in all honesty, and pay for that exposure, because organically you're just not going to get it on a business brand, if you like.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, no, it is an interesting one, and certainly it seems so safe, doesn't it, to hide behind that. But in fact, I was looking, I'm writing a book at the moment, and I do currently have my brand, and my website is the name of my business, so it's Pure Abodes. And yeah, the lady who's helping me write the book, she was like, well, you need to have your own name. And I'm like, yeah, well, but it is kind of in here. She's like, no. And it's kind of like that sort of exposure. And then I've been looking through other people's websites, and actually my huge bugbear is when I open somebody's website and there's not a picture of them. Like, I buy from people like everyone else does. And I opened this one particular website. I went to a networking event with lots of ladies, Global Women, on Friday. Absolutely awesome. And I opened one of those ladies, and everywhere was pictures of her. And it really felt so warm and really inviting. And it felt like she was talking to me through her pictures. And I felt like, wow, I want to have a website like this one. It felt so... it just felt so warming and welcoming. Whereas, you know, there's other ones where I literally, that's the first thing I do. It's almost like a silly thing where I'm just searching for a picture of them. I want to see them. It's not that whether they're attractive or not attractive. I just want to see them, because that then helps me see whether the way that the website speaks to me is whether I want to work with them or not. And that seems a very odd thing to do, but it is so incredibly powerful. And it also made me realize that perhaps I needed some more photos of me.
Yeah, always a good excuse to go and get some more photos. Exactly. Get a branded photographer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to get the branded photos done, because they're invaluable, because you've got they're always there in your folder. When somebody needs one, you can just get them across. It's dead easy. But it brings me back to thinking about LinkedIn, for example. Those of you that haven't got your LinkedIn with a photo of just you looking approachable, then that's so important. You need to have that. And also make sure in your settings that you've got it set so that people that aren't connected to you yet can see your picture, because it looks so dodgy if somebody requests to connect with you and their photo's not there. And you might think, well, I've got my photo on there. But if your settings aren't open for the public to see your picture, then people will just see this round sort of grey circle, and they won't actually see you. So chance, and we say as well, like, don't have picture of you like with a wine glass, or you with, like, some people have like maybe their family in that picture. Well, no, we need to know who you are. So it just needs to be, especially on LinkedIn, it needs to be a picture of you, of how you want people to, if you went along to a networking, what would you look like? Have it looking like that. So we used to say all the time, like, oh, don't, you know, like men, they like to do it where they've been fishing and they're holding a fish. It's like actually an angler or whatever it is. We don't want that. We just want to know, you know, how you would look in your, and if you are somebody that's you know, a plumber or something, have what you wear when you plumbing, or just how would you show up to a networking event? How would you want people to perceive you to start? That's what that photo needs to sort of show, I guess.
I love that. And actually that kind of thing is so key. So I wear hats. And the reason I do that is because I'm quite tall and I can walk in a room and you can pretty much see me, and people will refer to me as the lady in the hat. But then another thing that has been really interesting, especially through LinkedIn, is going to some networking events, you know, when you're given the name of everyone beforehand. And you can actually go through, and I've a number of times before sent a message the night before saying, oh, I'm really looking forward to meeting you. You know, I'm really interested in this part about your business. I'm the lady in the hat.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, a hook.
Yeah, and they, you know, and they absolutely loved that. That was you know, really positive kind of feedback.
Yeah, so you say you're a salesperson, but ultimately, like, that is a classic example of great marketing, is to have like a hat as a hook. So I used to be a member of BNI years ago when I had the recruitment business, and there was certain people that had their hooks on that, and those people now I can remember. So there was a couple, he's retired now, so it doesn't matter, but he would always wear like pink, and so you just, I don't know why, but we just, like, he was like, oh, come and talk to the guy in pink about like photocopiers. But now I would still think of him when you think photocopiers. What, it doesn't even make sense, but you just do it. It's the same with you with your hat. So there's something that you could have as like your hook that could make people remember who you are. It's really useful.
Well, good. I'm glad that's a tick in the box. I can say, okay, I can keep doing that one.
Yeah.
So let's kind of like drill down and just take an example. So obviously you've spoken about building a brand. It kind of needs to be you. Well, let's kind of just relate that into, you know, so you know, you're you, and then suddenly you're looking for bookings for your 2 rent-to-rent, as you said, in Whitby. How does that relate? Because that can sometimes be such a big thing, isn't it? Sometimes it's kind of like, oh, do I really want to talk about my kids? You know, what is it? You know, when I'm trying to attract contractors, it can be quite a difficult sort of leap of understanding how those can be crossed over.
Yeah, I think in all the different strategies that we follow in property, I think sometimes it can be trickier with serviced accommodation, just because you have to, like, there's like almost 2 ideal clients there, isn't there? You want to attract, you know, you want to attract the landlords because you want to get more of your service accommodation, but at the same time you want to attract direct bookings, so you don't have to pay the OTAs. So it's similar to when I had the recruitment business. We need to get candidates. We also need for the clients to place those candidates in. So it can be a little bit tougher in terms of the messaging. But what a great thing we do with our clients that are service accommodation people is we get them to have like a lead magnet, which is all about, it's better if they're all in one area. So we have one guy, all his service accommodation units were in Sheffield. So he had a lead magnet, which was like, you know, great things to do in Sheffield, or if you're going to attract. So that was kind of getting the tourist type of people in. But then, so yeah, I mean, own who you are and where you are. So, and plus, you don't have to bring your kids into it if you don't want to. Think of it as business media, not social media. You don't have to, I mean, no one wants to hear me shouting at the kids in the morning. It's not relevant. Well, why you not got your shoes on yet? Well, that's not really like, you know, that's not really attract people to work. Well, some people it would attract people, but that's not the business persona I want to kind of put out there. So you get to, as much as you get to decide who your ideal client is, like you get to decide your ideal avatar of who you want to be in the space and how you want to show up in work. And I think some people say, but you should be authentic. You should be you. You should be. We don't want to hear every single thing about you. So that's pretty important as well, to think about how you want to show up in the world and what bits you want to use and not use. So yeah. So
can you give some examples of that? Because that's you know, really interesting, isn't it? It's as good to know what you shouldn't do as what you should do.
Yeah, so you get to decide. So we have a concept called Savvy Self. So we Get Savvy Club, which is where you sort of go through. We work with our clients with it, but you go through and you talk about how you want to show up in business. So the kind of words that would be relevant to you. Do you want to be shown that you can do X, Y, different like buzzwords that mean something to you, and then almost have that like nearby for you to refer to as like, because it's really bad like when people complain on social media. Well, if I was to go, let's take the shop analogy again. If you had a shop and I came into your shop, and some days you were lovely, you know, you're like, oh, good morning, how can I help, blah, blah. And other days you were like, I was like, morning, and you were like, oh, don't even talk to me. The kids have been doing this happened. You'd be like, you wouldn't feel comfortable going. You'd be like, what mood am I going to get in this shop today? So think about how, like, as if this is your shop window, and what do you want? What do you want people to feel? How do you want people to react to you? What do you want to show about yourself? And make it, you know, spend some time actually thinking about that, rather than, oh God, I think often people think of social media just as this chore, like, oh, it's a chore. I've got to show up. I'll post something about that and then run off again. No, it's social media, but it's business media, and it's about, you know, it's your business. So how do you want to show up as a business?
Yeah, I love that. But just deep diving a little bit more into that, just to understand, there is also this kind of element that is banded around it, also being authentic. But I suppose sort of speaking out loud is to show that, you know, there are things that go wrong, but perhaps is that kind of like a learning. This is what I did. It went, it was a catastrophe, and this is how I overcame it, rather than kind of a victim mentality. Is that kind of where we're going with it?
Well, we say scars, not scabs. So if something's still pretty raw to you, don't go on there. There's nothing but they went through a bit of a phase, if you like, trend on LinkedIn, where people would be crying, like photos of them. I don't know about you, but I've never took a picture of myself when I cry. But you know, people would take a picture of themselves mid crying and then post it out and be like, oh, it's been so tough. Well, if you genuinely were crying, then that's a bit too raw to be going out and talking about that. Wait until you're through it, and now it's a scar, and it's actually you've sorted the problem out, and you can talk about it without feeling like you're, you know, going to cry. There's a point in my life where I'm unfortunate I had to go through, you know, my ex was taking me to court and blah, blah, blah. There's no way that I would have been able to, like, during the time, like, properly do a post about it, whatever. Whereas maybe now it's not relevant to what I do, but maybe now I can talk about it and I can write about it and it will be fine because it's so far in the past. But if you've still got something that kind of, like we say, scabs, it can be raw to you again. Don't bring it up. Don't speak about it, because it's not, you know, it's going to be cringe for you. It's going to be cringe for them. And plus, you haven't finished it. There's no learnings for the person, is there? You know, you're just kind of, you know, complaining about something really, or it's too. So yeah, think about it. Is it useful to the narrative, and is it going to? Are people going to buy from you based on you saying that? And if somebody comes across like they're a bit of a mess, although we might sympathise with them, and we might be like, oh, that's really tough that they went through that. Are you then going to pay them? You know, if you've spoke about how you've just had this real big issue with this service property, one of your properties, and you're in the middle of it, and it sounds terrible for the person that's trying to stay in your place, and a real mess, you'd think, and sympathise. Oh, that's a bit harsh that happened, Emma, but that probably wouldn't book with you. So we'd be like, seems like she's been in a bit of a mess now. Maybe go and use that Airbnb. But no, you want to say, actually, we had this issue. Maybe it's around keys or lockboxes, I don't know. We had this issue when I first started out. We had this issue, but now I've started doing this. So the whole process of working with me and my, you know, booking through me is streamlined now. It's much better now. So yeah, you can use it as a tool to kind of show how you solve problems and how you help people. But yeah, don't do it mid-crisis.